Hi, my name is Mark Biernot. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I feel like I'm in Wonderland or something because the oil prices have gone down to almost $48 a barrel. What this means for the Russian economy is disastrous. And I'm going to explain how this all unfolds. It means Ukraine will win, as I've always stated. And on this trajectory, the Russian economy will collapse. It does feel like Alice in Wonderland here. So, at $48, if you understand microeconomics and the microeconomics of the firm, sometimes my students would say graphs for laughs. They have to, find the intersect point between the average cost, the profit maximization point where the marginal revenue equals the marginal benefit. You have marginal cost, fixed cost, average cost. It gets dizzying. But the reality is, oil production is based on profit, and Ural oil at, I think it's at time of this video, 48.38. The break-even point is more like 70. That's where the fixed and variable costs are covered. And you say, why is it so high? Because there's been logistical rerouting to Asia, to India, China. And this is not in the normal supply chain, which they can just pipe it to Europe or on a transport ship with sanctions. So you have a break-even point of 70, and right now it's at 48.38. The question is, are they even covering the variable cost? Because if they don't cover the variable cost, and I estimate it to be right around 49.7 is where they can't cover any of the variable costs. Right now they're in a net revenue loss without, again, getting into the microeconomic language of average cost, etc. And if they go below, let's say even kissing 40, they can't cover the fixed costs, which means that's the shutdown point. Right now, think of it like, let's just pretend in a fantasy world that Russia makes non-toxic children's educational toys. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that would be Europe. And you have a factory, you know what Russia makes and what they're about. You have a factory that has workers, which is a variable cost. You have the machinery, which is the fixed cost. The variable cost not being covered, maybe you can take a loss for a while, but eventually you're going to have to shut down the factory because you just can't maintain it. And that is what's going to happen with the Russian oil production. Now, the bad news is, the Keystone COP economy in Russia, and it is a Keystone COP economy, it's almost like they've factored in this, breakdowns and machines become obsolete and things go wrong into their production. So you can shut down an oil well. They have standard, on land, not offshore oil wells, deep drilled, Siberian, for almost a year or two before it becomes, the infrastructure starts to wear down or more. It was kind of made Soviet style. But that doesn't mean the revenue pool isn't dry. And the revenue pool right now is so dry that significant services are being cut. We have what they call a labor shortage. It's really not enough money to pay municipal workers, firemen, policemen, teachers, hospital workers. They don't have enough money to pay schools. They don't have enough money for water. They don't have money for actually gas transport and maintenance, for electricity type things. It's all underwater in Russia. Parks, recreation, all these things are deteriorating. And this is the municipal side, and we're not even talking about the private sector. So Russia has an option. What they can do is either, and considering that 30 to 50% of the direct budget and up to 64%, maybe 65% of the indirect budget is related to oil and gas, maybe even up to 70%. They can either tax more, can't do it. You can't squeeze blood out of a stone. Taxation is done there because the people are going down in terms of real income. I'm not talking inflated income. And that's another video. They can't float debt because of the sanctions. Nobody internationally will buy Russian bonds, Russian war bonds. Nobody in their right mind would you? And they can't float anymore domestically because that market is saturated. Ukraine is going to win. Russia is going to lose. They can't finance this anymore. All the pension funds and everybody else They've tried to lift themselves up by their own bootstraps. They can't function and they can't finance this ongoing war. The invaders are out of gas, ironically. It's almost like in the Matrix, Morpheus tells Neo asks Morpheus, you mean when realize I'm the one and I master all these things, I'll be able to dodge bullets? And Morpheus says, his reply is, when you realize this, you won't have to. And that's the same thing with Ukraine. They won't have to dodge bullets. It'll start to decay from within. Remember, it's estimated, I took a classics Roman history by one of the most brilliant professors in college, and he estimated that up to 75% of the decline of the Roman Empire was internal decay, economic problems. And Russia is the third realm. We know this. In the negative sense. Much worse. But you wouldn't want to live under Rome either. So Russia can't finance through taxation, can't finance it through external debt, it can't finance through internal debt. It does have the option of money printing, and we know that only lasts for so long, if they haven't done it already. You can say, well, the ruble's strong, look at it. It's gone up to, 1.2 pennies from 1.1 penny, 0 pennies, a penny to 1.1, 1.2 against the dollar. That's because the dollar has fallen. If you look at it against a stable currency like the zloty, the Swiss franc, or the euro, the ruble's going down. It's in a down slide. So the currency is going down. The oil revenue's dried up. The national wealth fund in Russia is dry and depleted. The stockpiles from the Soviet Union and armaments are gone. Their supply chain is totally disrupted. China's decreasing. There are obviously because of the tariffs, the whole world is shrinking in demand. China's demand for this oil is decreasing, and the price that they're demanding and now is much lower and lower. So the total, again, it's about the margins. Without getting into the technicals of microeconomics, average cost, variable cost, intersection point, marginal productivity, it's about the margins that you make, and it's not covering even barely the variable cost, but it's definitely underwater below the break-even point, so the revenue's dried up. So Moscow feels the heat. And if we're lucky, they're going to feel the heat in a literal sense and eventually in the eternal sense, because, we are from ashes and to ashes we return. They'll feel it in the eternal sense. I'm not one to judge. Okay, judge not and you should not be judged. But, well, look at their resume. Anyway, because oil is sinking, Saudis have increased it. And in June of 2025, they're going to be unwinding even more of the cuts that they had before. I don't know what, prompted them to do that. Maybe it is behind the scenes 3D chess, or maybe it's everything the whole world, the British had a song when they were surrendering at Yorktown, the world turned upside down. They were singing that song as they left. We love the British now, but it has nothing to do with like Russia or anything like that. But that is the song I believe the Russians are going to be drumming when they retreat from Crimea, when they retreat from Donbass, when they retreat from Ukraine, with tails between their heads. Because oil, their lifeblood, is down. They're down this rabbit hole, this Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, and anybody out there can rebuke my claim with intelligence how Russia can maintain a profitable operation at $48 a barrel and the whole world economy going down and their supply chain and logistics wrecked. Meanwhile, Ukraine's doing the opposite. They're using technology, intelligence. People are using and plugging into Ukraine, and there's a capital flight, intellectual capital flight in Russia. So hang in there, Ukraine, because like I said, my initial prediction is June 30th is when you're going to start to see some cracks, and the final end comes at the very latest, 2026. That's my prognostication from Wonderland. My name is Mark Biernat. I'm a monetary economist. Have a beautiful day. Thank you very much.